Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. Today, we're going to dive into Chapter 8, Ask for What You Need. And we have the very lovely Stephanie Evelo here from, I'm not saying it, Steve, she's from
Indianapolis.
So Steve teases me because I say Minneapolis like I would say Indianapolis, so I would say Minneapolis.
There we
So
go.
when I say the two cities, I have to slow down and think about, okay, wait, this one is.
There you
Hi,
go.
Marilyn. Hi, Terry. Hi, Christine. Welcome.
Hi.
Oh, hello, all.
So, Stephanie, tell me a little bit about, I think you guys probably saw her family reunion on stage, or was it Mega Camp?
I know we were talking about that last night. I think it was Mega Camp, maybe.
I don't know. I don't do details.
Right.
And I remember you being on stage and talking a little bit. What was that like?
Well, it was one of the greatest honors of my life, honestly. I've never been on stage with Gary, and yet having the honor of being on stage with Mo and having a personal conversation with Mo is, yes, one of the highlights of my life and career. So, yeah, absolutely blessed.
That's so cool. So, Stephanie, we are going to be talking about Chapter 8, and you and I talked a little bit this week. And, well, we talked for about an hour. It was amazing. And there's so much stuff in this chapter. And I think it's maybe for me one of the hardest chapters. My coach, I have a MAPS coach, and she says I'm too considerate. And I don't like to bother people. I don't like to burden people. And so asking for what you need doesn't come naturally. And in this chapter, we learn a little bit about when Mo first started planting Keller Williams here in Oklahoma. And she needed to find investors, and then she needed to get buy-in, and she needed to do all these things here. And she learned to overcome her fear of rejection, and she learned how to ask for what she needed. Stephanie, what are your thoughts around asking for what you need, and in particular, overcoming your fear of rejection?
Yeah, I think you and I are probably a lot alike in that way, Missy, right? Because of course, I think also sometimes we're afraid to ask for help or ask for things because for me, I'm afraid to ask for help because I feel like, well, I can just go do it myself, but I try to overdo and do too much, right? Where then sometimes I need to stop and ask for help, or ask for help in things that maybe are not in my wheelhouse or not in my lane, right? Also, I think just having enough boldness, right, to step out and having enough courage. I think she mentioned it, being sure be sure to know exactly what you want and believe it is possible to get it. So I think that sometimes it's a matter of, what happens between the two ears, having the mindset and believing that what we're going to ask for that we actually would receive, because otherwise, why would you ask for it if you didn't really think you would get it, right? So I think it really kind of starts there in the mindset of believing that what we will ask for that we actually would receive.
Stephanie, has there ever been a time in your life when you knew in your heart that you were meant for something and you had to ask for that thing? What was it?
Well, so this has been an ongoing event, and I shared a little bit, but of course, when you're up on stage with Mo and you only get a few seconds up there. So part of this whole journey for me is I was at a real estate conference, a non-KW, but another real estate conference years ago, back in 2012, and the speaker had said, okay, I want you to write on this board some really big audacious goal, and then on the back, what's the fear or what's stopping you from breaking through that, right? So it was about breaking through and breaking through the board. So we did a board breaking ceremony on that board. So I have it, and it sits beside my bedside, and on that board I had written down that, and back then my team was not making over $1 million, right? So it was 8 years ago, and we were not $1 million real estate agent team yet. And actually was pretty far out of reach at that moment. But I wrote down on the board that I wanted my team to make $1 million net $1 million, and then give $1 million. And that was really where God was tugging at my heart, that we wanted to create a company to give away $1 million. Well, that was the thing. It was really kind of like putting it out there and asking for it, right? And asking for it from the universe, but asking from God, like, okay, because the speaker even said, he said, there might be something tugging at your heart that you've maybe never even spoken out loud. And my heart just started pounding, because I knew exactly, like, God had put this on my heart for about 2 years. I knew that he wanted me to create this company that would give away $1 million, that was so far out of reach of what at that time maybe was believable, right? You know, even when I read the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book way back in the day, I used to, you know, I read the book multiple times, and it was like, oh yeah, those people make $1 million, right? Like, that wasn't something that actually I would do. It was like, oh yeah, those people were able to do that. But like, it wasn't necessarily something that I was at the mindset of believing yet that was possible. So, so that's been the journey. So our team did break through that, but really for us, it was asking God to send us the people with the knowledge of how to create a company that would make $1 million and give $1 million. Because for me, I know how to make it. It's about keeping it and netting it, and then how do we create it to be a giving community and giving it away. So that's really, yes, it's just been about asking and waiting to receive those people that can help build and create this company to do what we're trying to do. So, and that's been a big journey, right? For 8 years, we're still on that journey. We're still on that journey. And God did the most amazing CEO who's phenomenal in all the numbers. And now she's got us on all the plan of, you know, what's the step and what we'll be doing each year, and increasing our giving goal each year, and like all of this to get to that, you know, end result. So yeah, see, ask and you shall receive, right?
That's amazing. So in what ways in your career and in growing this team, so Stephanie is in Gary's top mastermind. So in what parts of all of this journey have you had to really overcome your fear of rejection?
It's funny. I think daily, right? For me, it's daily. I'm high IS. So of course I want to please everyone. I want everybody to be happy. I want everybody to like me. And so I think as a leader, you know, sometimes having to wear that hard hat and make some hard decisions, or maybe make some decisions or do some things that maybe are not the popular vote with the team or the team members, or sometimes even with your clients, right? That's for me, overcoming that fear of, you know, asking for a price adjustment, right? As simple as that might seem. For high I's and S's, right? Like I'm asking for that price adjustment. Like, I know they need to adjust their price, but just being bold enough to ask, and then, you know, showing them why they need to, you know, follow through and make the adjustment. So I think it's in, for me, it's in almost daily, right? It's in simple little things of just daily trying to overcome that fear of rejection, or someone not, like I said, not liking or not accepting or not, you know, that's the high I, of course, comes out.
Yeah, I have in my past. So I'm very, very good at asking for things, and I like to do the big, hairy, audacious dreaming, and of course that's how I landed myself in this book club and doing this thing, because I had an idea, right? And I asked for what I needed, and yet I think there's also a lot of just limiting beliefs in general, like, who am I to deserve this thing that I'm asking for? Or like, who am I to deserve the kind of big business that is going to give away $1 million? How did you overcome some of that stinking thinking on your journey?
Well, some may or may not know the story, but we actually owned another franchise, a different other denomination franchise prior to KW.
Denomination,
however to describe it, right? So yeah, KW has been such an absolute amazing benefit and experience for me. sorry, I'm totally off the topic. What was the question again? Because now I've got thinking about all of KW. Like, I'm so blessed by KW. It's amazing.
Just drink some Kool-Aid. You'll be fine, and we'll get back on track. How did you overcome some of your stinking thinking in?
So I took Bold, right? So right when I got into KW, I took Bold. I think I've taken like 6+ times now. Even just got done with the Bold pivots. That might be 7. I don't know. I've kind of lost track, right? But that for me, so just being very transparent. So my mom suffered from some mental illness things when I was in high school and such. And so I knew that from a mental standpoint, I needed to make sure that I was filling my inner thoughts with positivity. So even back earlier on in high school and in college and all, there was something called accessories at the mall. So I bought like all these accessories. I had them all on my desk and in college, and pictures, and just anything that would be positive to try to fill my mind with. Because I knew that it was very easy for me, just from my gene pool to go maybe into that negativity and that negative space. So I think that it's really important, it's like stinking thinking, right? Like it's what you put in is what you get out. So I think that it's super important. Like a lot of people can't believe, I really don't watch TV. I mean, there's just very few shows or anything that I watch, because if I'm going to put whatever in my mind, I don't watch any scary movies. I don't watch any negative anything, because I think it's just so important about what you're putting into your mind. Now, I might be really naive, right, in some ways, because I don't watch a lot of things. And so some things, that I watch, I'm just like astounded, like that's really happening in our world. And, I know it is. I know there's lots of negative out there, but I just really try to not pay attention to it, because I think what you focus on expands, right? So just really trying to fill my mind. I have a daily calendar that I would rip off each day, a positive quote. There's little 365-day calendars. So back before all the technology, right? But I would rip off every day a Joel Osteen or, different little calendars where it's a positive something every single day being filled in mentally. So that's usually how I try to keep myself positive and trying to overcome those negative spaces and places that we can go to.
So Steve, on here, have you guys met my husband Steve? He's the cute guy in the beard. He talks to our kids all the time, and he uses the analogy about poop in your brownies. And if I told you there was a little bit of poop in your brownies, would you eat it? No. Well, what if I told you there was just the tiniest little bit? Would you want to eat the brownies? No. Well, what you put into your mind is really like the poop in the brownies, and how much poop has to be in there for them to be brownies you would eat. So I was thinking about this earlier and asking for what you need. My parents tell this story. I have an older brother, very different personality than me. He's not driven. He's definitely not a D. And apparently when we were little, I don't remember this. However, I've heard the story a million times. I think my mom wants me to feel guilty about it. There was a time that a Burger King opened, and the actual Burger King was at the restaurant. And so there was like this big long line wrapped around the side. And my brother, who's 2.5 years older, his name is Jeff, and I waited with the family, my parents, to go in and meet Burger King. Well, I didn't care about meeting Burger King, and Jeff cared a great deal. He was so excited. It's all he talked about leading up to it. And when we got up to the front, I was brave enough to ask to stand next to the Burger King and meet him, and Jeff was afraid, and he got pushed to the side by the crowd, and he never got to meet the Burger King. So I actually do feel a little guilty, and I didn't do it on purpose. I don't even remember it. And I think about a lot, what kind of things am I teaching my kids about asking for what they want? So one thing we do, which is interesting, every time we go out to eat at a restaurant, if the kids want a packet of ketchup or anything like that, we make them go ask. I'm not asking for you. So in what ways do you have with your own family and your team, in what ways are you teaching others to also ask for what they want?
Well, no wonder, Missy, we've said for many years now that we needed to know each other, right? Absolutely. That's kids, the same thing, right? They want their steak a certain way or whatever it is. And we've been forcing them to communicate that to the waitress from day one. And they're like, no, you ask. I'm like, no, if you want ketchup or if you want fries or if you want whatever it is. So what's funny is, the waitress, they'd be little bitty, right? Like, 10, 9 and 6. And she'd come over and she's like, oh, what do you want? And she's thinking they're going to like want this little bitty kids meal or whatever. And they're like, yeah, I would like a steak, medium well, baked potato, sour cream only. I mean, they're like they know exactly what they want, but if they don't ask for it, they're not going to get it, right? I mean, it's just little simple things like that. And I think same. I grew up with 3. There were 2 sisters, so there were 3 of us, and I have 3 boys. Got a sense of humor there for sure. And I think for that, it's the same thing. When there's 3 in the group dynamics, if you don't step forward and ask for something, the other brothers are going to get it, or others around you. So just like in your scenario with your brother, it's the same on like the team. I sent out this morning an opportunity for a lead, and I just said, hey, look, here's a lead opportunity. Let me know who can service in this area. And one person, immediately responded back, and I'm like, see, that person is going to be the one that gets the reward, because she asked, she's like, hey, will you send me that information? Well, absolutely, right? That we have to be willing to step forward and take that risk and be bold about it. So.
Well, and I think it's interesting. One of the things Stephanie and I talked with each other about earlier this week is how many times sometimes we're afraid to ask for what we want. And as leaders or the receivers of someone asking for what they want, we always respond to it in a positive way. Even if the answer is a no, I love that someone is almost annoying and asking me for what they want.
Yeah, kind of like our telemarketer that was calling me and asking me for to advertise. I mean, she probably called me. I felt like it was like every day. It wasn't, but I felt like every day. So finally, we just asked her, had she considered an opportunity in real estate? So we actually hired her as an ISA. So see, you never know. Here she's trying to sell us an opportunity for ad spend. And actually, she was so good and so persistent and consistent, we actually hired her to turn around and call for us for ISA work. So there you go. But had I not asked her, we would have never known that she was open to another opportunity, right? You just got to be willing to ask. You never know what you might receive.
That's amazing. So we've got about 10 minutes left. What questions or ahas or takeaways do you guys have? Questions for Stephanie or takeaways about the chapter? Chime in. What do you guys think? Leilani, hi.
Stephanie, I have a question. So obviously that drunk monkey is the fear of rejection, right? So how do you share with your team to get rid of that fear of the rejection? Like, especially when we're making our calls every day, right? And afraid of the no, right? We got to eat that frog. So what advice do you give your team for that?
Sorry, the question was about what advice to give the team about the drunk monkey?
Right, to overcome that fear of the rejection. Like, you have to ask, but that fear of rejection in the back of your head.
Again, I think it's just about the positive, the positive mental attitude and the positive PMA. I'm always sharing positive things with the team. Obviously persistence pays. That's the other thing, right? I think, after 5 calls, right? The typical person gives up. So it's the 6th, 7th, and 8th. Those are the people that are going to reap the most reward. So it's just that persistence. I was going to say, I think it's hard for me to say, because we just look for people that have really strong grit, right? That have really strong grit to begin with, right? That are going to get in and dig in and just go to make it happen. So, gosh, I'm trying to think of how or what else. Really, it's just just the positive mental attitude stuff that I'm trying to do. Monday Mojo, quotes and positive quotes out to our team. We have a team Facebook and a team group me. So it's always just trying to share different positive things and positive incentives. We do team incentives and team we broke our team into 2 different groups where they're actually competing individually, but also collectively as 2 different groups within the team. That turned out being an awesome opportunity, because then not only are they trying to strive individually, but then also, you know, together collectively as a team within the bigger team. And I think it was something called Wattify. It's actually for an exercise app that you can create. It has a leaderboard and all kinds of stuff. It's amazing. We stole the idea from some other teams. So, but I think it's called Wattify, WODIFY. And you can set it up, and, you know, so every day, everybody was encouraging each other. Hey, did you make your calls? Have you set your appointments? Have you made your calls? Have you reached out? Have you posted on Facebook? Because we got different points for all different things. So those are just some of the ways, but really trying to have the encouragement come from almost positive peer pressure from the rest of the team, if that makes sense from a culture standpoint. Yeah, so not just from the leadership down, because it's almost like, for me at least, you know, I've been doing this 20 plus years. So it's almost like as a mom tells their child, right? They won't do it when the mom tells them, but if the neighbor tells them or the teacher at school tells them, they'll listen. So it's almost like trying to create the positive peer pressure from the others, you know, surrounding on the team.
I love that.
Hope that helps.
Question.
All right, so Stephanie, my mom's told me a lot about you, and you've been very inspirational. And
Sounds so sweet.
And what you said, what you think of expands. That's true. So I'm gonna think about that whenever my friends invite me over to their house and say we can watch scary movies. Like, no thanks.
There you go, right? Because I have 3 boys, and how old are you?
10.
I have one. I have an 11-year-old. So yes, and I have 3 boys, and some of my boys are okay with watching scary movies, and they don't get as scared. But one of my boys gets very scared, and so we just had to talk about that. He just doesn't watch scary movies, because then if he has nightmares or it makes him kind of scared at night or thinks of other things. So we just had to cut all scary movies out, right? We just had to think about what we were watching or what we were putting into our minds. So yeah, that's a very good thought and a very good takeaway. And what was your name again?
Leilani.
Leilani. Well, thank you, Leilani, for sharing. And I'm so excited, and I'll be excited to hear how that goes for you. Okay, your mommy will have to report back, or you can report back and tell us how that goes for you, okay?
Okay, and another thing.
Yes.
So I have a YouTube channel, and I, you know the song Best Day of My Life, right?
I'm sorry?
You know the song Best Day of My Life?
Uh-huh, yes.
So I rewrote that into a coronavirus version.
You did?
Yes.
Awesome. Can you share your YouTube channel here with us? Or
Can you share a link or
Yes,
something?
so that maybe we can all go out and watch it, and maybe we can share it out?
Yes, and I have a goal of 1,000 subscribers.
Well, I bet all of us on here would love to help share that out and get to 1,000 subscribers. Cause see, if you don't ask, you don't receive. So if you would like to ask for 1,000 subscribers, then I bet we will help you get to that goal. So thank you for being so bold to ask.
Thank you for subscribing.
I can't wait.
What other ahas and takeaways or questions do you guys have? We've got about 3 or 4 minutes left. This is a fantastic chapter. It's one of my favorites. Christine, I'm gonna unmute you. Hold on, you're muted.
Nope.
There you go.
Okay, sorry. One of the things, like in reading the book, that I noticed from what Mo was talking about is that you also have to be open to receiving what you ask for. And I'm sure, Stephanie, you can attest this too, that what we ask for sometimes comes in really different ways than we had imagined. we put it out there and the opportunity shows up, and we have to have enough faith in that the universe, it really does have our back. God has our back. That they're opening a door for us that we can boldly walk through and not be afraid, because we asked for something, God gave it to us, or gave us the opportunity. We still have to do the work, but we have to take that step through the door and see. You have no idea what amazing things lie on the other side of that door. That's one of the things that really, I was with another brokerage too prior to coming to Keller Williams, but I had the opportunity to go to trainings at Keller Williams, which also helped me get through the last shift in 2009 and 10. But I think that you have to trust when that door opens, and even if it looks a little scary, that there is something wonderful on the other side of it. Just step through it and trust. You asked for it, you're going to be given it to you, just not how you might have imagined it. And I can't wait to get to Leilani's YouTube channel and see what she's done on there. I'm excited. I've been so happy to see you on every call, Leilani. You're an amazing young woman, young girl.
That's awesome. Yes, and Christine, yes, it's funny you mentioned, because yes, what we ask for doesn't always look like maybe what we expected.
Mm-hmm.
So when we opened the other franchise prior, what was interesting is that we knew that God was calling us to open it, and there was a very specific area that we had to open it geographically. And we went and drove back and forth, and there was only like 6 buildings that we could choose from, and there was nothing for sale and nothing for rent. And then the day that we felt that God was like putting it so heavy on our heart, we went and drove back by, and there was this little bitty pink sign. And it said for rent, this little bitty, like 8 by 11 sign. And so then we ended up renting this little space. Well, we put the deposit down, but what's funny is that space, everything just seemed to not be like fitting together. It was like the security and everything just wasn't fitting right. And the gentleman that we were working with, it was just, everything seemed to be kind of just at odds. Ironically, another space opened up before we ever then went into that first original space. And we ended up, the other space was perfect. It was exactly, we wouldn't have to change anything. So when we went back to the original, we said, well, we don't want to go back on our word, right? We'd already put the deposit down and all this. When we went back to him, he was so ecstatic because I think he could rent it for more money. And so he gladly, literally reached in his back pocket. He was, good old boy. He literally reached in his back pocket and handed us the check back for our deposit. So he'd been carrying it around. He'd never deposited it. He never did anything with it. And so then it worked out as a win for him and a win for us, but that did not look like what we thought was going to look, right? So I think that's the other thing. We had just prayed like, Lord, we need a space, right? We need a space. And that first space we thought was going to be the space, but actually it was a totally different space that we ended up in. So sometimes what we ask for and what we receive, like you said, Christine, it doesn't look the same as what we envision maybe it's going to. So, yep, I would agree.
Stephanie, do you have a minute? We try to end right at 12:45, and we've got 2 more questions. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So Lee on Facebook, Lee Bogar, what is your biggest ask right now?
My biggest ask right now?
Isn't that a great question? I'm glad I'm asking you and not me. I have a huge ask I haven't shared with anyone.
Well, I think it would be whether the ask is personal or professional. For me personally, I sit on our church board, so I've been praying. Actually, I've got a meeting today right after this. We're just asking the direction of our church, right? So we're kind of at a crux that it's a small church, and just really, Lee and I've had some conversation about this, so she's familiar with us a little bit. But just, yeah, that's been really my current ask personally, is just what is the direction, where would God take us in our church? Also, I just had a vision conversation prior to this, which was where I ended at 1, with my CEO, and just we're looking at reevaluating our vision just is the vision that we set out for, that I broke the board over in 2012, and then she came on, 3-4 years ago now. Is that vision still the same vision? Does it still look the same of what we want? And because I think that this COVID time has really been a time to kind of push pause and like really let us look at our entire lives and what we're doing personally and professionally. And then, so are we really putting an emphasis and focused on those things that are most important to us in our personal and professional life? So that's really what we're evaluating. Like, is the vision still that? Like, eventually we wanted to have a property management company, and we have our own rentals ourselves, but really, do I really want to manage property management? I'm not sure if that's still going to be on the vision board, right? When you really look at where you want to spend your time and where you want your efforts. So that's my big ask, is where does God want us to be, and where does he want our company to go as far as the big picture vision? And that's my big ask right now.
Awesome. Okay, and then one more last question before we close out. Kathleen has one more question. I'm trying to unmute you. It's not working, friend.
Bye, Terry.
Okay. Stephanie, you brought up a great point about asking God. And sometimes I feel, I don't know why, like I feel like sometimes we feel like we're not deserving, like ask big, right? Ask big and keep asking. And that took me a while to get over that. But hearing you say that, I think I need to ask more and continue to ask, bigger. And this COVID-19, being stuck at home alone for so many weeks, I really dove into that. And I still feel like I don't ask enough, and ask consistently.
We're always asked this question, like in bold and different training things. If you knew that you couldn't fail, what would you do? What if we reframe that to, if you knew that the answer would be yes, what would you ask for right now?
Right. That just gave me goosebumps.
Well, Stephanie, any last thoughts before we close out? Thank you so much for coming. I could listen to you all day.
Absolutely. I wanted to just share on that last comment before. So, yes, so many don't know my story, but my house was hit by a tornado when I was 7, so we lost everything. So I grew up with very much nothing, right? And so when I first got into real estate, my first year, the year prior to getting into real estate, I got licensed in 92 and started my team in 1998. But the year 2 and 3 years prior, I worked for another husband and wife team, and I made $22,000 a year. And I really want to share this piece, because I share it hoping that it will empower someone else to think differently. So back then I made $22,000 a year. I got into real estate. My dad had worked at a factory for 30 years, and he was looking at retiring, and he was making $55,000 a year after 30 years in the same job, right? So my first year in real estate, and this goes with their comment earlier, my first year in real estate, I sold 47 homes and made over $150,000. And I didn't feel like I deserved it. And I was embarrassed to even tell my parents. I didn't want them to know how much money I'd actually brought in. So I think that that was a mindset, right? That was the story I was telling myself. And that's what I've had to work at shifting, right? My entire 20 years. And that's why the mindset has been so important to me and for me, because, my dad was a factory worker and my mom was a housekeeper. And so I didn't necessarily think or believe when you talked about asking big, right? I didn't ask for big enough, right? I wasn't thinking big enough, because back then, the only thing that I could think of was making $55,000, right? Like, I didn't think that I could and would make more than $55,000. So that's really, I think that's where I'm like forever indebted to KW, right? On the thinking big, act bold, aim high. Just because I just think every single time I hear Gary or any of the top agents or any agents on here, like anytime, it's constantly challenging us to just think bigger, right? It's like the balloon, because every time you blow it up, it can't contract back. It can only then go bigger. And so that would be my challenge to everybody, right? Myself included. unless I'm the #1 agent in Keller Williams, there's always ways to think bigger, right? Then I'm not thinking big enough, right? So for all of us, right, no matter where we are, there's always a place to think bigger. If we're not Bill Gates, right? Like, I mean, we're just not thinking big enough. So
I love it. Well, thank you, friend, for coming and sharing with us. And it was so great to see your face.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you for having me. It was an absolute honor, and hopefully someone got something out of this, right? God just uses me to share. That's whatever was on my heart, I put it out there, and you all can take whatever from it.
I love it. Thank you, and we'll see you guys Monday at 12:15.
Thank you. Thank you. Go to your YouTube channel.
Yay!